Well, let's bring in Mzwandile, that is the SABC's political editor, into this conversation about this new normal that the ANC has to deal with. Good morning, Mzwandile, and welcome to the show. Unprecedented for the ANC, but some would say that, hey, listen, that if you had OR Tambo was able to deliver the ANC January 8 statement from exile, surely the president of the ANC right now, Cyril Ramaphosa, can also do that.
Very good morning to you, Aldrin, and the viewers. And of course, this is a big moment for the ANC. I think we can't stress it enough how important it is. But the key challenge going forward, Aldrin, is how will the ANC respond to these current challenges. Interestingly, you and I, on this day a year ago, we were in Kimberley under totally different conditions. We are supposed to be somewhere in Limpopo this weekend where the January 8 statement is supposed to be delivered, but here we are because the world has changed completely. You just said Oliver Tambo was from 1972 outside the country when this liberation movement then was still not allowed to operate here, but he was able to have an impact. You have technology, you have everything that is willing to support you. You are the governing party. You basically thing that will assist you to move your message forward. Here's the question and the challenge, Aldrin, going forward. Will the ANC be able to embrace the fact that the world order has completely changed and it needs to be able to adapt? I mean, when the president last year made those promises, what is it that they were going to do? No one could have imagined the damage that the coronavirus has done. But be that as it may, they still need to be able to change the quality of lives of the people. You have to do it differently. The question that is facing everyone is, will the ANC be able to do what it is supposed to do? It is the government, it is the governing party, and in the face of perhaps what is happening, the issue and the related stuff. So it's going to be an interesting journey, Aldrin, as we monitor and we watch the speech that will be delivered later today by the ANC President, Cyril Ramaphosa.
And the significance of the speech that will be delivered today is that it also comes at a time as the country goes to the local government elections, while the ANC on the other end is preaching unity.
Absolutely. And you know, what ordinarily would have happened, this would not necessarily have been the official launch of its manifesto, but they would have used this occasion perhaps to rebrand themselves, to somehow highlight the issues that would be of interest. I mean, the ANC has been getting a lot of criticism from the public at large about some of the happenings during this. So this time would have been used, I guess, to mobilize communities, to try and get in touch with. But here we are, and the elections are just around the corner. So how will then that message be given out? Yes, he is going to be able to connect with the nation through television, through radios, through digital platforms. But in terms of convincing people on the ground, because Aldrin, you and I know that you can deliver the most beautiful speeches, but if your speeches are not matched by your actions on the ground, they are as good as non-existent. So what people have been complaining about is that the issue really of service delivery has been lacking, and compounded now by the coronavirus, which has led to thousands of jobs being lost. So how are you going to be able to recapture, in fact, the new jobs that would now be required? So how are you going to create them when you've been struggling under normal conditions? So it's going to be very interesting. This election, the local government election, is going to be a very interesting phenomenon to watch, because a lot has happened.
And also considering that how COVID-19 has scrambled the programs of all political parties, but just focusing on the ANC, that ordinarily you would have the NGC And then you would have, for instance, with the local government elections coming up, which would give you some sort of indication about what the ANC says it's working for it based on the resolutions that they've passed at the Nasrec conference. But that NGC didn't take place, and those BGMs that were supposed to take place didn't take place. And also the provincial elective conferences, those didn't happen at all.
It's a very interesting situation. Of course, we're expecting, well, in terms of the announcement of the ANCSG, maybe late last year, was that it was going to be held sometime this year. And but given what is happening, I honestly don't think it will happen. I mean, we are currently going through a second wave, and during the time when the NGC is supposed to happen, it will be in winter. And one simply cannot rule out the possibility of a third wave. Unfortunately, a third wave could even be deadlier, because it will, if it happens, it will happen in the conditions of cold weather, and you know, the cold weather and coronavirus. I mean, if we are battling during the summer weather, so yeah, it's going to be very interesting. So the ANC, not only the ANC actually, so all other parties have somehow not been able to connect with their constituencies. So they've not been able to push their program. Some of the questions that people are legitimately asking, so they've not been responded to. I mean, if some of what is happening, you're looking at some of the roads really, and that have been completely neglected. And then you ask yourself, do you still have a councillor or a council in that particular area? And unfortunately, that is replicated across the country. So when local government election comes, you are saying to people, you will send people who will be able to deal with those things. But based on the track record, so what is on the ground at the moment is certainly not encouraging. The ANC, Aldrin, will have its work cut out to really convince a lot of South Africans that it is still the party that is able to obviously push the agenda of making the better lives for all. Yes, the evidence on the ground is that it still enjoys widespread support. But how long will that support last? That the complaints are continuing to come. And not only the complaints, you can see that some of the issues are not being done, and the issue of corruption simply takes the cake.
Yeah, and speaking about that issue of corruption, year in, year out, if you look at the ANC January 8 statements, you would find that there is a portion that speaks specifically to corruption. And what the party has tried to do is introduce the Integrity Commission to try and deal with those aspects, also becoming some sort of a deterrent. And I wonder what the tone of the president would be that this time around, that as he addresses the millions probably, or hundreds of thousands of members and supporters of the ANC, when it comes to the issue of the party general secretary or secretary general who also faces corruption charges.
Yes, it will be very, very interesting. I mean, you've mentioned the issue of the Integrity Commission. You've been looking at various leaders of the party speak on these issues. You've been, in some instances, seeing some conflicting messages, so which makes it very curious for an outsider. So here is the statement, which is supposed to be a clarion call. Yes, this is a party event, but you and I know that this is basically the basis upon which government formulates its program, because after this January 8, then they start now going into the government, the Khotla and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So the tone, the message and the clarity of what the ANC president will say tonight will basically set the stage for the year ahead. If the ANC president is seen to be perhaps vacillating on certain issues, or perhaps not clear on what they want to do around certain issues, people will kind of like difficulty in really believing going forward. So what is it that they can do? What I think should happen is that the president of the ANC must use this statement, which he delivers on behalf of the NEC, we know that it's the statement that really must give us the direction as the country. Because if the country is faced with a pandemic like this, and then the leadership somehow is found wanting, it will be very, very difficult to believe anything going forward. So I expect him to perhaps outline some of the things that they will do with the issues regarding corruption. And perhaps even going as far as touching on the issue of the Secretary General of the party who is currently charged. So we know that they said the top six is going to go and formulate how they will deal with this issue. And we know how the Secretary General himself say he will obviously be guided by the NEC. We know the recommendations of the Integrity Commission. So you take all of those things together, and then you look at the party that is still in government, the party that is still being trusted by many South Africans. So will their actions going forward still be the source of trust that South Africans have given? So challenge the ANC president will have tonight when he addresses the January 8th statement.
I wonder also whether he would use this opportunity to speak about the State Capture Commission of Inquiry, considering that he himself would be testifying at some point.
Oh yes, this is a big project that the governing party must be seen, not only be supporting, must also be seen to be taking part very, very actively. Because if you have decided to say you want to right the wrongs, so you can't do that perhaps selectively. You must show, you must lead by example. Yes, we know that at some point he will also go before the commission, perhaps which would be very interesting. But also they have the issue of the former president as well, who is also expected to appear before the commission, and we know some of the issues relating to those aspects. So we expect the president of the ANC to be very clear on what this commission is supposed to do, on how the party is supposed to cooperate, on how everyone is supposed to cooperate. Because honestly, it will not help anyone to set up institutions and then you are not even utilizing those institutions. If you set up institutions because you want to deal with particular aspects, take part fully, be exemplary, show leadership. So be part of those that you have said they have come to help. So he must say something about the State Capture Commission. He must say something about the issue of corruption in general, even relating to the PPEs. We know what has been happening. He, of course, must indicate what sort of new direction the governing party will take, given that it still has the responsibility of delivering services and bettering the lives of the people. Yes, there are constraints because of the issues of, but what sort of innovative ways as the governing party are they embarking on to make sure that none of those, all you simply do, you just change direction? Because sometimes not all tragedies, Aldrin, are permanently negative. Yes, no one wants this. What people would do is that they would take that and use it to create new opportunities. The issue, for example, of technology can never be overemphasized, given how important it is. I mean, you and I ordinarily would be speaking today, sitting together in the studio, but we can't do that. Why? Because this pandemic has created situations where we are not encouraged to do that, but we still have to do our work. What do? We have to invest in technology. So we need to hear what he is saying around the issues of broadband, around the issues of connecting South Africans, what he is doing to the poor. So how are they going to be part of what is happening? In the next 2 the schools will open. But we have been seeing the numbers are rising. So will you open schools whilst the numbers are rising? the issue of online or of remote schooling is becoming very important again. So this is the governing party which has been presented with the opportunity of crafting new ways and coming with new ideas as to how to push the new economy, the digital economy.
And just finally, Mzwandile, is there any significance at all that the Deputy Secretary General of the party has announced that she will be retiring in 2 years' time? And it hit me at that moment that, wow, the ANC is about to go back to an elective conference next year.
Oh, well, it is, 2022? Yes, 2022. We are in 2021. Yes, 2022. It's going into an elective conference. Time flies. Basically, I think what he's basically saying, she's basically saying is that she perhaps has played her part in leadership roles. Perhaps it's time to let others to lead. And I think that was the context I had that statement to say, we've done our part. Perhaps it's time that others take over now. So it will be very interesting what will happen, because people are not able to campaign given that the situations are not allowed. But I think very soon you will start seeing those who have interest. In fact, in the past few weeks, you may have seen Tituzani Zuma, who is basically saying he is throwing his hat in the ring. It's going to be very interesting as the months continue. Who else will be interested to go and perhaps challenge the president, the current president in 2022? Of course, we know he's elected for one term, but tradition is that he or she would always go for the second term.
Mzwandile Mbeje, thank you so much for your time. I would like to see as well how COVID-19 would throw spin in the works when it comes to lobbying, as well as those political machinations. Ladies and gentlemen, can you believe it that the ANC is going back to its elective conference next year, 2022? Time really does fly. Mzwandile Mbeje, thank you so much for your time. As indicated that the president will be addressing the ANC members later on this evening around 7 p.m.